absolute favourite Beatles songs, and a real combination of McCartney and Lennon's talents. Very much a Lennon song, of course, for the lyrics, but unmistakable McCartney, and a very big influence of Roy Orbison, with whom they toured. 63, they did a UK tour, and it was his first time, Orbison's first time over here. He was the lead, if you like, the headline act of the Beatles and various others, Jerry and the Pacemakers and so on, supporting Roy Orbison on the bill at the beginning of the tour, but by the end of the tour, as the story goes, Roy Orbison was supporting the Beatles. McCartney apparently spent quite a lot of the time in the back of the tour bus gleaning what he could from Roy Orbison's songwriting craft. And Orbison had this great talent of distilling the melodic and harmonic vocabulary of the Great American Songbook. And there are lots of little devices that we start to see in this song. I've got a couple on the second fret. The original is in A, so I'm going to play as if in G. If you want to play the original George Harrison lead part, you'll do that without a capo in A, but you can kind of integrate that here with the capo on the second fret. And anyway, I just find this a bit easier to play this in G. Seems to make a bit more sense. Anyway, let's look straight away at this intro. It's a bar of G and a bar of D, and they repeat. But actually, if you think about the melody, da, 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 do, da, we move on to the D half a beat early, dam, bam, ba, do, ba, bam, to hit that note there. So let's look at the way this intro works. If you're playing G this way, with your first finger down on the fifth string, a lot of people do. I urge you to try it this way, without your first finger. Okay, this is a more versatile way of playing G. For the melody, we're going to play all of this within the G shape. Open second string to the top string. You've got your little finger on the third fret there. Na, na. Then you've got three notes on the second string. Open second string. First finger now, that's free to go onto the first fret of the second string. And that little finger that was on the top string is going to go to the third fret of the second string. Okay, that's on the top two strings, and you can harmonise underneath by picking or strumming whatever strings you like that belong to that G chord. That kind of a thing. And then you're going to hit the note on the top string, second fret, when you go to that D chord. Getting to that D quickly enough to sound that F sharp, that's a little bit tricky. You've just got to be swift about that. What you could do is move to the F sharp on its own in time and then kind of backfill with the rest of the chord as and when you get your fingers in position. That kind of thing. Okay, but that's it. We get two of those, and that's the whole of the intro. 2, 3, 4. Again, if you find that D difficult to get to, you could play that whole thing as a D7. That's actually slightly easier to move to, isn't it? Okay, that's it. All right, let's look at the verse. Now, the verse is a 4-bar sequence that repeats, and we've got a different chord every 2 beats most of the time. G, D, E minor, G7, that's the first 2 bars. There are places I remember. Now, C to C minor, all my life. Back to G. Though some have changed. That's the whole of the first section there, and then that just repeats. So, all the places I remember all my life, though some have changed, and again, some forever, not for better, some have gone, and some remain. I'm going to play this whole thing a little slower than the Beatles do. It feels a bit, I mean, it's very much of the time, it's quite poppy. Very driven and a bit brisk for me. I prefer something a little more sedate. Let's look at these chords. That's C minor. Now, if you're struggling to play that, you could do this. Just form an A minor, and as long as you stick to the middle 4 strings, move that up until your first finger is on the 4th fret of the 2nd string. You're going to get a C minor with an A in the bass, but that'll actually work fine. You must be careful not to hit that top string though. Okay, but ideally an A minor type bar chord on the 3rd fret is what you want. Also, the first 3 chords, they're G to D to E minor. If that D weren't there, there would be a really nice opportunity to play a passing bass note, F sharp on the 2nd fret of the bottom string. All the places I remember. And because that F sharp is actually a note in the chord of D, we could play D, but with an F sharp in the bass. So now I'm throwing my thumb over onto the 2nd fret of the bottom string. There are places I remember. That's okay. But that F sharp is actually a duplicate of the F sharp on the top string at the 2nd fret. So if I do this and ignore the top string, 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the bottom string, 3rd finger on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string, little finger on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string. That's again D over F sharp, and you'll see me when I do guitar arrangements playing this shape a lot, especially in the key of G. It's really nice, a smooth way to transition down to the E minor. So that's what I'm going to do. There are places I remember. There's my G7. It's a little bright up here with the capo on the 2nd fret. I mean, not massively, but if you want to play something a little more mellow, having to come up to the top string to hear that note there, it seems a bit of a shame. It's a little bit bright there. But you could actually move that note. That's an F natural. There's another one here on the 3rd fret of the 4th string. So with my G7, I've got my 2nd and 3rd fingers down here. If I bring my little finger onto the 3rd fret of the 4th string, okay, you see this with Bob Dylan a lot, by the way, then I've got a G7 without having to play that note. Otherwise, the difference between G and G7 is only heard on the top string. You see exactly this shape, for instance, in The Boxer. I've done a video on that, and that's the same solution there. So we don't have to go up to the top string. Anyway, there are places I remember. That's quite nice. I can keep my 2nd finger put there on the 2nd fret of the 5th string before I get to my C. Last thing, if you did want to play that G7 that way and happened to catch the top string, open top string now is an E above the F of the G7. We've got a G13, and for me that just adds, since there's just a single guitar here, that adds a bit of colour, the sort of thing I quite like. There are places I remember all my life, though some have changed, some forever not for better, some have gone and some remain. That's the whole of the verse. Now the bridge section is another 4 bars that's different. We begin on E minor. All these places for a whole bar have their moments, and C for a whole bar. With lovers and friends, that's F, and then back to G. Okay. For the C chord, because the melody has B in it, places have their moments. That's a B, the open 2nd string. Moments. You could play that in the chord. That's a C major 7. So I'm just lifting off that 1st finger. That's up to you. All these places have their moments. We're lovers and friends, I still can recall. Now another 4 bars beginning with E minor, but this time we go to A. Some are dead and some are living. C minor. In my life, I love them all. And there really is everything. I'll play you through one verse and one bridge, just so you can get your bearings, and then we'll have a look at some picking. There are places I remember all my life, though though some have changed, some forever, not for better. Some have gone, and some remain. All these places have their moments, where lovers and friends I still can recall. Some are dead and some are living. In my life, I love them all. All right, let's look at some picking. So, a couple of picking pattern ideas. Firstly, like this. In eighths, I've got my picking fingers on the second, third and fourth strings. My first finger's on the fourth string, second finger on the third string, and my third finger's up on the second string. My thumb for a G chord is going to play the sixth string, and it works like this. The thumb picks the bass note, then my first finger picks the fourth string, then my second and third fingers together pick the third and second strings before that first finger comes back to pick the fourth string again. Those are half a beat each, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, which means as long as we've got 2 beats for each chord, we play this pattern exactly once. There are places I remember all my life, though some have changed, some forever, not for better. Some have gone and some remain. You know, it's very different now from the original, bit more sedate, but I quite like that feel. Otherwise, perhaps a typical Travis picking pattern, more like this. This is in 16ths. So each beat contains 4 picks. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm just using my first and second fingers. My first finger is on the third string, second finger is on the second string, and it goes like this. The thumb picks the sixth string, second finger picks the second string. Now my thumb moves up to the fourth string, and that's followed by the first finger picking the third string. There are places I remember all my life. Some have changed. And you know, you don't have to be too insistent about this. It's really about leaving space and having gaps and just missing out some of those pick notes just to create a little bit more atmosphere. There are places I remember all my life, though some have changed, some forever, not for better. Some have gone and some remain. All these places have their moments. And you might decide to play one pattern in the verse and switch maybe to the brisker pattern in the bridge, or switch from strumming to picking, or vice versa. That's up to you, but those are a couple of suggestions I've got. Okay, the only other thing to look at really is the outro. The form, I should say. We have the intro, we have verse 1 to the bridge, verse 2 to the bridge, and then we have verse 3, which is an instrumental. And on the original, George Martin wanted to have a piano solo there. And he did this slightly odd thing where he recorded a piano at half speed and then sped it up. So it's an octave higher and double the tempo. You'll recognise it. At the moment in my playthrough, I've recorded it on the saxophone. I'm not sure. I might end up putting a harpsichord in there instead because it does sound a bit bats. But that instrumental is just another verse in terms of the form. Then we have another bridge. So it's intro, verse 1, chorus, bridge, verse 2, bridge, verse 3, bridge, and then we go to the outro. So I'll just play you the last bridge. And I know I'll never lose affection for people and things that went before. I know I'll often stop and think about them. Now we we get the C minor. In my life, I loved you more. Now we get this. Our intro figure. Two bars there. Then we get C minor. In my life. For 4 beats plus an extra 2 beats. There's kind of a bit of a pause on the original, but that's how I'm approximating that. In my life, I love you more. And now we get this once more. But here, actually, you really do want to land on a D7 rather than a D, because the final thing that happens is this. That's from a D7. You're going to lift off, you're going to play the top note, then lift off that finger, so you've got an open top string. That finger comes back onto the 2nd fret, and we move on to a G. And that's everything. All right, thanks for watching. Let's have a playthrough. 1, 2, 3, 4. There are places I remember all my life, though some have changed, some forever, not for better. Some have gone, and some remain. All these places have their moments where lovers and friends I still can recall. Some are dead and some are living. In my life, I've loved them all. But of all these friends and lovers, there is no one compares with you, and these memories lose their meaning when I think of love as something new. Though I know I'll never lose affection for people and things that went before. I know I'll often stop and think about them. In my life, I've loved you more. Affection for people and things that went before. I know I'll often stop and think about them. In my life, I've loved you more. In my life, I've loved you more.